Hello there, Screen Pups, and welcome to something new that I'm trying here on the site. I'm Aaron, or as some of you know me from the site Obscure Fan. So by now we've all seen that Screen is a different website than the one we initially signed up for. But thanks to the faithful and hardworking community of film geeks we have, there's still much to see and do on the site. However, I must admit that one of the main things I enjoyed about the site were all the video features and the podcasts, and I know that I'm not alone in wanting to see them come back. In fact, user Gangly has gone ahead and offered his services to help bring back the videos, a service that I'm going to have to take him up on, so everyone go over to his page and make sure to follow him to see what he ends up coming up with. But in the meantime, I'm trying to come up with some sort of audio feature here on Screen, and sadly Screen doesn't have any way to upload audio onto the site, so that's why it's coming to you as a YouTube video, but hey, it's a start. So the big day has finally come, the Avengers is finally here, and I kid you not, I just read a news article that said that before the first showing of the movie has even come out, it is already projected to have made over $600 million on its opening weekend. With that kind of money, they could build an actual working Iron Man suit for the sequel. And it's getting great reviews. Last time I checked, it was at like 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. But before you go in to see this movie, I realize that a lot of you might have questions. So as a diehard comic book geek, I decided to open up a blog asking you to submit any questions you may have, and I would do my best to answer them. I don't know if this is going to become a regular feature or just a one-time thing. Like I said, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Doing my part in the community to get things back to normal here on Screen. But in the meantime, I've decided to call this segment, Speak, Screen Pups, Speak. Alright, I'm going to now turn to my blog. The first person to ask a question was AcuraMax, who he's been responding to a lot of the things I've been putting up late with a lot of great posts. Everybody go over and make sure to follow his page as well. He said, "What a coincidence. I had just a few questions up my sleeve. Here are a few. Number 1, are the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. the same organization? Number 2, which he decided to blur out, I'm going to now slowly crawl my scroller over it to reveal the hidden question, and hope it's not a spoiler about the movie. He says, why is Iron Man using his armor from the first movie and not the one from the second movie?" Okay, I was worried there for a second. Alright. Number 3, in the comics, what is Black Widow's role in the Avengers/S.H.I.E.L.D.? Does she play any major parts? So far, she just seems like some extra. Number 4, in the comics, what can Nick Fury do? When I was reading Marvel's Civil War, there was a lot of characters, even God-tier characters, who quaked in their boots at the mention of Fury's name. But Fury never showed me any reason that he was that dangerous. Anyway, thanks for this blog and the stuff you have done for the Avengers. It certainly helps keep this site lively. In my opinion, I think you deserve this. And you put a little link. Oh, it's an internet high five! Oh, thank you for that, AcuraMax. I will respond with an audio high five. I think that was just a clap. But let's get to your questions. Are the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. the same organization? Alright, right off the bat, I'm going to get super geeky on you guys. The answer is, it depends. In the main Marvel Universe, they're not the same. Every now and again, S.H.I.E.L.D. might, have somebody come in and check in on the Avengers. Every now somebody who is a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. might also be a member of the Avengers. But the Avengers themselves are a separate organization. Tony Stark pays for all the places that they live, all their expenses. However, about 10 years ago, Marvel decided to start something called the Ultimate Universe, which was this separate universe in which they said, hey, what if these characters appeared today? What if they hadn't been around for all these years? Spider-Man, the X-Men, and the Avengers, they all just started popping up now in the current age. And it was very successful, and in that universe, their version of the Avengers were part of S.H.I.E.L.D. They were just like what they are going to be in the movie, where Nick Fury went around to each of these characters and recruited them one by one for this team that would be working under S.H.I.E.L.D. And a lot of the things in this Avengers movie are actually taken from the Ultimate version of the comics, including their version of Nick Fury. In the main Marvel Universe, Nick Fury is this grizzled old white guy. In the Ultimate Universe, he's Samuel L. Jackson. And when I say that, I mean he's Samuel L. Jackson. They literally went to Samuel L. Jackson when they were designing Nick Fury for the Ultimate Universe and got his permission to design the character based around him. And that's why when they got someone to play Nick Fury in the movies, it was such a big moment when they actually did get Samuel L. Jackson to come in and play him, because basically they were getting the guy who inspired the character to actually play the character. Next up, why is Iron Man wearing his armor from the first movie rather than the second one? I haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't know what their explanation for that is going to be. Honestly, it could just be a design choice. You know, the people making the movie could have just preferred it better. But Iron Man, he holds on to all of his armors. He keeps them in a big bunker under his company. And whenever one gets damaged, he just goes right down there, picks up one of the old ones, or he just builds a brand new one. So lots of stuff is going to be exploding in this movie, so I'm assuming probably his first one will get, his most recent one will get destroyed, and he'll go to his backup one. In the comics, what is Black Widow's role in the Avengers? Does she play a major part? So far, she seems like some extra. I'm not going to lie to you, the trailers do make me kind of afraid that she's going to be an extra in this film and that she's not going to play as big of a role. Because we've all seen that part where the camera is swinging around all of them and each of them are kind of showing off what they can do, and she just cocks her gun, and you're just like, oh, you are so outgunned here. Because even Hawkeye, who just shoots arrows, his arrows at least explode when they hit stuff. So even he's kind of above her in this film. Which to me, you know, I like Black Widow, but there are so many other really good female characters that they could have gone with. In the future films, I would really love to see Miss Marvel or the Wasp come in as members of the Avengers. But to answer your role, I'm not trying to badmouth Black Widow, by the way, because to answer your question, she actually does play a very large role, because Black Widow is basically, her superpower is basically that she's the world's greatest spy. And that's really important to the Avengers because, you know, most super teams, they go in and they are there just to go in and stop a really big bad guy. The Avengers, not only do they go in and they occasionally stop really big supervillains from outer space, they also get down the dirt sometimes. They also do lots of espionage stuff. You know, they fight lots of criminal organizations. And for something like that, Black Widow is the best person that you want. Black Widow, she can kind of get into anybody's good graces and basically get whatever information you need. Alright, get into your last question. In the comics, what can Nick Fury do? Nick Fury is basically the world's top cop. He is the guy, he sees all the pieces on the board. When somebody is out there in the field, they can really only see what's in front of them. They can see the battle at hand. Nick Fury is the guy who thinks 10 steps ahead of everyone else. So yeah, Nick Fury might not be out there on the front lines and kicking ass, but he is the guy who goes, okay, I'm going to give you this weapon because you're going to need it at some point in time. I'm going to have a ship waiting here to fire because at some point the villain's going to show up there. He's the guy who basically, he's the world's oldest war vet. He has seen every war, knows every battle strategy, and knows how every situation will go down. And because of that, you can't really see him, you know, out in the field kicking ass. But he's the reason why the other heroes are there kicking ass. Alright, so that answers Acura Max's questions. Next up we have Ashogo, who I'm more than positive I'm not pronouncing right. All I know is that Ashogo uses Jake Gitz from Chinatown as his avatar. And because of that, he's in my good graces. Chinatown, my favorite movie of all time. I'm putting that on the table right now. But his question is, if all of these superhero stories take place in the same era of the same universe, with the exception of Cap, how is it that these superheroes have never heard of each other before the Avengers? Granted, I haven't actually seen most of the Marvel movies, so I don't know if they ever cross-reference, but you'd think that a billionaire in a flying mechanical suit, a scientist who transforms into a gigantic green monster, and a man with a magical hammer of godly power all suddenly appearing across different parts of the country within the span of a few years, that they would have heard of one another. Is the Marvel Universe just supposed to be a place where the occurrence of... I was hoping I could get that all in one breath. Is the Marvel Universe just supposed to be a place where the occasional super-powered human being cropping up is relatively common news? Kind of. Well, actually, that's the thing, is that in these movies, they actually do reference each other. And they do it very well. It all kind of started off at the end of Iron Man when he says, I am Iron Man, and then he comes home and Nick Fury's in his house, and he opens up by saying, you think you're the only superhero out there. And I really like that line because it kind of implied that there were other superheroes out there aside from Tony Stark, but they were kind of secret, and that they had kind of been hidden all this time. And by Tony Stark going out there and saying that he was Iron Man, and that Iron Man is real, it's an actual superhero, he exists, it kind of blew what Nick Fury was trying to hide, and now superheroes are out there, so he was kind of saying we're in a new era now, and that these heroes aren't going to be hidden, they're not going to be a secret. So that kind of explains why Tony Stark had no real knowledge of these other heroes, but it opened up for the movies that came afterwards. You know, after that we got The Incredible Hulk. And in that movie, they say that Bruce Banner was studying gamma radiation because he was trying to reproduce the super soldier serum. And the super soldier serum was what gave Captain America his powers. And then at the very end of the film, we see Robert Downey Jr. come into a bar and meet General Ross, and he tells him he's getting a team together. And General Ross says, Tony Stark, you always wear such nice suits. And he was very clearly trying to reference that Tony Stark wears an iron suit because he's Iron Man. And then after that, we go into Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 focused a lot more on S.H.I.E.L.D. and introducing the Black Widow. It focused a lot more on delving into S.H.I.E.L.D. and focusing on the Black Widow. And a lot of people kind of think of that movie as being the weakest of the bunch, and that's because they did just basically stop the movie throughout the second act to basically just have one big advertisement for the Avengers film that's coming. But there is a point in the movie where Agent Coulson, the guy who kind of tied all these movies together, he said that out in the desert of New Mexico, something's brewing. And at the end of the film, we see him drive out into the middle of the desert, and there in a giant pit is Thor's hammer, just sitting in the desert. And that does lead us into the Thor movie. And in that movie, there is a scene where one of the scientists who found Thor in the desert says that he knows about S.H.I.E.L.D. and he knows that they can make scientists disappear, and he references an old colleague of his who he says used to do incredible things with gamma radiation. And he was very clearly talking about the Hulk. And the last movie that came out was, of course, Captain America. And Captain America is a very interesting film because it came before any of the other ones. Even though it's the last movie, it was set before the rest of them. It kind of had to tie all the other movies together and set up the Avengers, like get us all ready to roll straight into that. And yet it had to tie into all of them without any of them actually happening yet. And I think it did a great job of that because the guy who designs Captain America's S.H.I.E.L.D. is Tony Stark's dad. And not only is Tony Stark's dad there, but we even see him working on a flying car that is run by repulsor technology, which is the same technology that Iron Man's suit uses. And from there we go to the villain, the Red Skull, and he is using throughout the movie a weapon called the Cosmic Cube. And they say early on in the movie that the Cosmic Cube came from Norse mythology. It was something used by Odin, Odin being the father of Thor. And then, I'm going to go into a little bit of spoiler territory for anybody who hasn't seen Captain America, but at the end of it, we actually see the Cosmic Cube open up a rift in space, and it basically shows us the sequence of stars that go by at the credits for the Thor film. So, I really have to applaud Captain America because I think it did do a good job of tying them all together, referencing all the other characters. And in fact, I believe that each of them did a very good job of that, except really for Iron Man 2, because like I said, Iron Man 2 just basically stopped the movie to let you know about what was coming up in the Avengers movie. But the rest of these films, they realize, hey, we have to tell a story about this one character. We have to focus on this one character, but we have to drop little tiny hints to let you know that it is all happening within a shared universe. And I think they accomplished that very well. Okay, that was the only other question that I got. I got 2 people to ask questions this time, and thank goodness I didn't get any more, because this is all just one big experiment, and if I had gotten more than that, it probably would have gone horribly wrong, but I think it worked out pretty well. I'm pretty impressed with what I came up with here, and I thank you guys for all the great questions you submitted. I'd also like to thank Michelle Bard, who provided the art that you are staring at there. You can see more of her stuff at toonscribbles.com. I will spell that out, don't worry about it. And let me know what you thought in the comments. Like I said, I'm just spitballing here. I'm just trying anything I can think of to create more activity here on the site. So just let me know in the comments what you thought about this. If you didn't like it, then I'll gladly try something else. If you did like it, then I'll come back in another couple weeks with another episode of Speak Screen Pups Speak. Can't believe I got that right on the first try. And to everybody else listening out there, thanks for tuning in, and hope you enjoy the Avengers film.